you're asking me what I would do.
Yeah.
I would do something that I'd want to be a leader, but I'd want people to understand, like, okay, this guy's selling me something, and I just have to do something with that. A couple of years ago, I was bored. When I was at Worcester, I loved learning. I was like, man, if I could stay in college forever, not because of partying and stuff like that,
right.
If I could go and get a chemistry degree, and then I get that degree, and then I could go get a philosophy degree.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that when I left that college, and I said, I just liked learning. So I was bored.
Hey everybody, this is Caller ID. We're calling about your identity, your direction, and what you're doing with your life. I'm Brandon Davis Wells. Let's dig into what we're really doing here.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. You're listening to part 2 of a 2-part conversation with Ashland University head men's basketball coach John Ellenwood. If you missed last week, go back and check it out, but this will stand alone as well. Thanks for listening. Take care. Have a great week, everybody.
You're asking me what I would do.
Yeah.
I would do something that I'd want to be a leader.
Yeah.
But I'd want people to understand, like, okay, this guy's selling me something, and I just have to do something with that. A couple of years ago, I was bored. When I was at Worcester, I loved learning. I was like, man, if I could stay in college forever, not because of partying and stuff like that.
Right.
If I could go and get a chemistry degree, and then I get that degree, and then I could go get a philosophy degree.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that when I left that college, and I said, I just liked learning. So I was bored, and I got my MBA here, and I was like, okay, a project management MBA. And I was like, if I probably did something, it would be in that line of work, because I was like, as a project manager, you got to coach, right? And you have to know, hey, this is the right way this is the direction we got to go. I got to get these people to do this, to accomplish this, so we can get down the line and stuff like that. So I'd probably do something in project management is what I would guess.
It's fascinating, because I think a lot of folks in coaching, those skills translate, whether it's into project management, whether it's into, being an athletic director, whether it's being in any kind of management level. Well, as far as the coaching goes, what's the hardest part that coaching that fans and people maybe in the community don't see, or people that they have this idea of what your job's like, but what is it that they don't see, or they maybe misunderstand?
Oh, that there's humans out on the floor. The amount of stuff that happens behind the scenes, like I always say, there's stuff every day that you're not prepared for, but you got to be prepared for. They're lightning strikes, right? You don't expect lightning to strike there, but it did. Now, how are you going to deal with it? So, I mean, the amount of stories I could have on, like, I can't believe that happened, and how do you deal with that? Yeah. My hardest day in coaching was, one of my players went into cardiac arrest on the floor.
Yeah.
And, we're at a scrimmage, and then all of a sudden that scrimmage turned into, how do we save this kid's life? And he's probably going to die, and we got to get him to the hospital, and you're sitting in the ambulance, and they're doing chest compressions on your player as you're sitting in the front seat. You're on the phone with the parents, who are an hour and a half away, saying, should I drive up? Or they're going to life flight them down to where you guys are. You got to stay there. I know you're worried about it. Like, that's not something they teach you. Right. But that's crisis management. And, I think that's something that, is really hard. People don't understand, like, that stuff, not that level, but you got to deal with people problems every single day. Mm-hmm. And, it could be a kid broke up with his girlfriend. It could be that, something back home happened with the kid's parents, and, and they're not telling you that. And I always tell our guys, I'm like, I'm not a mind reader. Like, if something's going on, you come talk to me, come ask for help. It could be grade problems. It could be, the kid did something stupid on Saturday night, and now we got to deal with it. Then you got to coach basketball, so it's like, we'll have 20 guys in the program.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's going to be a problem every single day when you have 20 people that are teenage to 22-year-old guys that you've got to make fit together just to win a basketball game.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part that people don't understand. It's like, yeah, there's a way that we want to play, but honestly, like I think most sports in most situations, it's like the team that makes the fewest mistakes is the one that wins. It's not necessarily your X's and O's. It's just make fewer mistakes and you're going to win. But sometimes the mistakes are off the floor that affect you on the floor. And that's the stuff that people don't see.
It makes me think about how important a staff is. And so I know as a coach myself, I always wanted to surround myself with people that were as smart or smarter than me on my staff. What kind of wisdom do you think you could share with people that maybe they're not necessarily in a coaching role, but they're in leadership, they're in management, about how to surround themselves with people that, like, what do you look for in your staff, and what should people look for in a staff? I don't mean X's and O's, because everybody that you hire and bring on at that level has the X's and O's or can learn it to the extent that you need them to. But what do you think that the most important things for people to look for?
Trust. Without doubt, trust. If you don't have people underneath you that you can trust, then you're going to be in a weird situation. Think about war. Who's in your foxhole with you? So, you need people that have your back. And, the other thing is you need people that don't want to be in that position forever. With assistant coaches, like when I was an assistant coach, I didn't want to be an assistant coach forever. So I wanted to move on to a head coach. So as a head coach, a manager of these people and a mentor, you better be preparing them, and they better trust you that their livelihood is going to become better because of your mentorship and where you're going to help them get to. So when you realize you're all in the same boat, and it's like, man, if we're winning, everybody's going to be on that boat. If we're losing, everybody's on that boat. So if you don't have, if there's not trust there, then it'll never work. I mean, I've been very, very, very lucky, and I wouldn't call it luck as much as fortunate, to the people that I bring on into my situation have been very good. A lot of these guys have gone on to do great things. I'm very proud of the people that have come through here and I've gotten to coach with. It's something where, I've always made sure that I got good people around me. What scares you as a coach is if you got somebody you don't trust, what are they saying to the players behind your back? Yeah. And it's a lot easier to be the second in command, not making the decision and saying I would have done it differently. And they, so you got to be careful of that stuff. You got to have trust without a doubt. I mean, any good relationship is built on that.
I love that answer. You're right. Moving from one chair over is a huge difference. You go from being an assistant coach to being a head coach is a whole world it's a different world. And I've been in that situation as a coach where I had to let go of a staff member because of that, that trust being broken. We'll just say it that way without getting into the details. And that's not fun, but you're right. I think trust is probably and you still want those people to challenge you appropriately and privately or whatever about ideas and thoughts, right? I mean, because that has to be part of that relationship too, right?
Yeah. Again, it's, can we debate and not make it personal?
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, like in coaching, it can get heated. I mean, it can get really heated because you truly believe something, and this is the way we got to go. And I've learned, like, look, I think as a person in charge, if you act like I know it all, then eventually those people stop coming to you, and I've been around coaches that didn't even want to talk to their assistant coaches, and it's just something where, then you eventually you don't feel valued and you don't grow. And then you're like, well, I want out of here because this is pointless. Right. So you gotta trust, again, that if you give responsibility to these people, that they're doing it to the best of their ability, even if they fail. Okay. And that's okay. It's okay if they fail, just as long as they learn. And we're all going to make mistakes, man. So it's like, I remember one time, like as an assistant, I messed up royally during a game versus a rival. And we lost by 1 point. And I'm like, that was my loss. And I just remember I went home that night and I told my wife, I was like, I think I'm going to get fired. Like, Monday, I'm going to get fired. I messed up. I went in there Monday. This was a Saturday game. So all Sunday I'm stewing on this. Monday, I got everything in my office packed up. I'm like,
Oh
I'm
my
gonna get
God.
fired. I'm like,
Wow.
I literally got everything in a box. I'm like, yep, all right, I'm out of here. And 9:00 comes, the boss comes walking in, unlocks his door, walks by my office, just says like, "Hey, what's up, Woody?" And I'm like, "Oh, anything else?" He goes, "No." He goes, and then he was like, "Hey, I understand. It's cool. All right, let's move on." And it was like all of a sudden that guy, like he showed me that he trusts me, and I made a mistake. I wanted to be even a better coach for him after that. You know what I mean? So you got to have forgiveness.
That's a
And I think
beautiful story. Yeah.
it's a big thing. It's a big thing. So you're not going to win every time. It's okay. It's
Right.
okay. And that's a hard thing to comprehend.
Yeah.
Because you have to win every time. But you got to know when it's like, all right, we lost. How do we learn from it? Let's move on.
Yeah.
As a young coach, I used to get angry after losses. But my college coach, after a loss, we'd say a prayer as a team, and then he'd shake all of our hands and then walk out of the room. And that was it. And I learned from that because we've all been in that locker room where after a loss, you just get yelled at, right? Yeah. Well, nobody wanted to lose, right? Nobody wants to lose.
Right. Yeah.
So, and if you sleep on it one night, you're a lot smarter of what you're going to say the next day. And sometimes you watch the film and you go back and you be like, you know what? I can see why that happened. And you're not as angry. And I had an assistant coach when I was just a young head coach, and I was, we started to win. You started to get that taste of winning, and winning was contagious. And all of a sudden, we lost a game that we shouldn't have, and I was angry, and just angry, and it got after the team. My one assistant, he was a wise old coach, and he had won some high school games. He just said to me, he's like, John, every loss I ever had, I always said was a coaching loss. I said, okay, what that means is look at yourself first as a coach, and you're to blame. Ever since then, I've always been like, I'm not going to say anything to my team after a game, after a bad loss. That's my college coach. And the second thing is take ownership first before you blame anybody else. Like I've gone back and watched film, and I'm like, it's my fault you didn't play hard, like stuff like that. And it's like I didn't push you hard enough in conditioning, and that's my fault. I've had those days where I'm like, it's just an effort problem. But I've taken ownership of every loss since then, since that day. And I'm like, every loss is a coaching loss. I don't care if you're playing the best team in the world and you're not going to win. There's a game plan to win, okay? You could be playing a team that you should beat and you lose. There's a game plan to win, and they have to buy into what you're selling. And, if you can't get your players to buy into that, ultimately that's on you. Their effort might not be there, but you're the one that brought them in. It comes back to you. There's always a reason that the loss is on the leader. And I think that's something that I've taken into this day.
I think that would translate well to military leadership as well. I think that's a kind of a principle that is often talked about in military leadership books, where it's a bad strategy if we lose. It's not on the soldiers.
Yeah. I mean, you look at World War I. I was watching a documentary on that, and it's just like the amount of death that happened and just charging into machine gun fire and stuff like that head on. It's like, well, this isn't Napoleonic Wars anymore. So like, you got to learn how to flank. Right? So, and it's just something where it's like, there's another strategy to win, and you better learn from that loss. That definitely, without a doubt, is 100% military.
One more question before we do a couple word associations. All right, as you think about your job, your role, the leadership, the pressure, and the fun parts, like you get to hang out with college kids and coach basketball. There is some fun. I've been around you, and it's fun. You make sure that the guys have a good time and enjoy it. It's work, but it's fun. What brings out the more frustrating part? What's like the most frustrating part of your job that brings out, like I always say, it's the Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David moment. Like what brings that out? Whether it's like you don't want to work on a scouting report, or you don't like breaking down video, or maybe it's the bus rides. And then what is like where you're at your happiest, your most joyful piece when you're coaching and in your role?
I'll start with the joyful part. The best part of coaching is when guys come back after they've graduated. Like when they come back and they see you, there's a genuine, that's my coach. And I'm like, that's my guy. You know what I mean? And it's just something where, you don't there's a lot of tension when you're trying to get people to do certain things.
Yeah.
Okay. And on the floors but they come back and they're grown men. A lot of times they have families, and they'll say stuff to you that you don't even remember happened, but it was important to them. And then you realize my influence mattered, and look where this young man is now. He's got a family, he's got his own life, and and I helped him down that road. So that's the best part of coaching, without a doubt. I always say the ultimate win is when they're 30 years old. They're educated, they're a graduate, they know how to own a room, it's that kind of stuff. And they have a family, they have a wife, they got a life. And it's like, you don't know what that influence and where they're at, like how they got there and what's going to happen with their kids and their kids' kids. And it's just like, man, I helped with that. That's the best part of coaching.
Yeah.
I think the hardest, most frustrating part is probably when a guy doesn't understand. Okay. Like they might not understand the value that they have. I think that's frustrating. Or, man, if I say something 5 times and it's just not clicking, I'm like, what part of, like, am I speaking Swahili is what I always say, like, do you not understand? So there's that aspect of things. I think the most frustrating thing, and I had a talk with guys the other day, is like you don't value yourself as much as I value you as a coach. And I think that's the most frustrating part of it. Like I'll have some guys that like maybe they didn't go to class for a semester, they just farted around academically, and then they get bad grades. And I'll be like, you don't value yourself the way you need to value yourself. And that's really frustrating as a coach, because I see your potential but you don't believe in it, so that I think that's probably the most frustrating part.
Before we get to word association, I want to ask a bit of a personal question, but like they're all personal questions. The coaching industry and the coaching business or whatever, there's always this like ladder that people feel, what people see on the outside is Division I coaches. And this guy went from this low major to a mid major to an upper major, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird business, right? Because guys who are head coaches at the Division II level, who are successful like yourself or like Bronx at Ferris State and other guys, rarely get an opportunity at that Division I coach. Do you think, why is that? I mean, because I think you guys could really be successful. So it's a 2-part question. It's a why, but also like, if that never happens, is that okay? Are you all right with that? Like if you never get,
yeah, without doubt. Yeah. If I got fired tomorrow, I'm totally fine with if I never coach again, I'm totally fine with my coaching career.
That's good. That means you know who you are, right? You're comfortable in your identity without basketball. I mean, that's a real thing.
I think, like I said, it probably a fault of mine is I am not 1,000% a basketball coach.
Yeah. Oh, that's
okay?
good. I think that's a fault, John. That's not a fault. I don't think that's a fault.
If you're at Division I, it is.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Division I is a different level in terms of like it's a very much a business. Okay. And they want wins right now, and I don't want to get in this whole thing, but the reason high school kids aren't recruited as much now is because coaches have to win right now, so they're going after older transfer portal kids and all that other stuff.
Yeah. Like Bruce Pearl is an example. Like Bruce Pearl's a rare example, right? Bruce Pearl was at Southern Indiana, was successful and got an opportunity to go up. But they are like, I can name them on one hand the number of guys who've gotten those opportunities.
Ben McCollum is the guy right now at Iowa. So he was at Northwest Missouri State, outstanding Division II coach.
Yeah.
Maybe the best of all time.
Right. Josh Schertz, right, from St. Louis.
Yes.
But again, very few
Ben McCollum, Josh Schertz. You just mentioned Andy Bronkema. Andy Bronkema is now at Central Michigan.
Right.
But once you make that jump, like basketball is 24/7 and 365. It's a lot of money. That's great, but it is your life.
You don't see your family as much.
Your family,
right,
better be married to basketball in that sense of stuff. It is everything, and I know this is kind of like the guys that have gone like there's more marital problems at that level. There's more kid problems at that level. I was talking to my dad one time about like, hey, I could go to this level as an assistant, make a lot more money. And my dad's like, well, you're going to not be home. I'm like, yeah, but Dad, I could make a lot more money, take care of my family, he's like, you're not taking care of your family if you're not there. And he goes, that's this isn't even a discussion. And I was sitting there like, man, I could make a lot of money, but I won't be able to help my kids. And I got 4 kids, right?
Yeah.
So what's more important to you? All right. Is it driving nice things, having nice stuff? Is it your family? Okay. Yeah, it might be a little tougher from a financial standpoint, but I really value being at, my kids' stuff. Like tonight I get to be a first base coach,
Awesome.
so
right.
at my kids' baseball game.
Yeah.
And
not at some AAU tournament somewhere in Florida.
Yeah.
Right.
Or trying to always, I'm not trying to raise more money for the NIL and stuff like that. I still do that stuff, but it's I got a lot more time on my hands to I can go boating, I can go fishing, I can go do this stuff. That's more valuable than salary. Now I got to make enough to make a living. Don't get me wrong, but it's just
no, you're
you
right.
got to be comfortable.
Yeah, my dad always said, and one of the things he taught me when I was young was life is full of trade-offs, and you have to know which trade-offs that you're willing to make. I mean, you don't need my validation on your life decisions, but I would just say I think there's a lot of wisdom in your discernment and the way you've gone about that.
Yeah, I enjoy family.
Yeah.
That's more important to me, than basketball. That's why I'm not 1,000% in.
Yeah.
You see it with some of these other coaches that, they're great coaches.
Yeah.
And I don't know what kind of family life they have.
Yeah.
But I'd rather be a great father and a great husband.
Yeah.
And a Christian than be a great basketball coach. Okay. And I want to be great at all those things. And as I get older, my faith has really grown. I was not a Christian growing up. I went to church. What do they call those people that go on Christmas and Easter? Priesters.
C&E. Yes. Priesters.
Priesters. And, that's what we were. And, but I am very much into religion now. And I see the value of it. Okay. Yeah. I see why that's more important than anything else in my life. And I'm not saying no, that I would ever want to be that level, but if it means that I can't be a good Christian and a father and a husband, then it's not worth it.
All right. Time for some word association. So you fire off the first thing kind of that comes to mind when I say a word. Failure.
Okay. It's okay.
Money.
Need it, but don't let it rule you. If it's one word, I would say.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. Sometimes people stumble over that one because the Bible says that's the love of money is the root of all evil. Money's okay. It's a tool, right? All right. Success.
Measured. I think you have to know how to measure success. So to me, again, when you're a young coach, it's easy. Oh, I got to win. I got to win. Yeah. All right. As you get older, success is, like I said, the 30-year-old guy that comes back to your office and, hey, coach, here's my kid. And all, so it's measured. To me, it's how do you measure success?
Calling.
Whatever God says. I read this the other day by Proverbs, and it was just and I'm trying to memorize scripture, but I'm not very good at it. So, but I love this. The other day I highlighted it. It was basically, we are free to make our own decisions, and that's great. But if I'm on a ship, God controls the wind, I control the rudder. So the wind is telling you where to go, but you kind of decide on how you want to navigate that wind. So the calling is, I think it has to do with that analogy of, the wind and the rudder. You got to feel the wind, man. You got to feel God. You got to feel the direction you're supposed to go. But it's hard sometimes because it's hard. It's I'm in control of this rudder here, and I'm not sure which way we're going sometimes. And sometimes you're going right with the wind. Sometimes you're going against it, right? So to me, that's kind of what the calling is.
Last one. Rest.
Very important. I would say rest. value it. I think everyone thinks they got to go. Rest is mental. It's a reset. The only way to heal your body is through rest. If you don't rest, one day it's going to catch up with you. I remember when I was a freshman in college, this wasn't at the College of Worcester, it was at the other school I was at. I was burning both ends of the candle. I'd stay up late, socialize, and then I would get up early, go to class, play basketball, and I just didn't get rest. And my parents, who I had not seen in months, came up to visit me, and I went over to their hotel room where they were staying at, and we were going to go out to dinner. They were just messing around in the room and all that stuff, and I laid down on the bed. I fell asleep, and it was a Friday, and I didn't wake up till Sunday, and I didn't get to see my parents, and they just let me sleep. And I just remember I was like, man, I needed rest. You have to value it, and I think it's something that it's okay to rest. I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's lazy.
Yeah.
Like, you got to know how to rest. So, even as in coaching, now that I'm older, like, I try to get my work done in the morning, but like, if we have an hour till practice and there's not much going on, I'll take a power nap. The rest is very valuable though, at the end of the day.
It is. The power nap thing's great. One of the things I've learned is you power a quick cup of coffee, like a small cup of coffee or an espresso or whatever. And it takes about 15 to 20 minutes for that caffeine to kick in. So if you immediately close your eyes and try to take a nap right then, that's the best time for that cycle to kind of restart. And I've done that.
Never thought about that.
I do that on occasion, and it's awesome. So
yeah,
let me know how that goes.
Really ready to go.
Yeah, you do. That's right, man. That caffeine will kick in. You'll be up. Well, John, last question. Whatever is on your heart that you want to share with somebody, if maybe it's something that you've learned wisdom-wise about career or identity or calling that you want to share with folks.
Just find value. Like, everybody is valuable, and I think sometimes you're in a profession where people don't see your value as much. Like, I think it's okay. Some of the best coaches that I know don't win a lot. And I know that's, and people don't see the value that those people have, but maybe they just they're not capable of getting the talent at the place they're at or whatever, but they've learned like, hey, it's not about the wins and losses. So I think there's professions out there where people get so caught up in the me, look at me. It's okay to be in something that you find valuable, you're at peace with. You're going to understand how valuable it is, but not everybody else around you is going to see that. Okay. And, I talked about my dad, who was a salesman, right? And, he sells a lot of stuff, but his value was in him being a father. To me, it was him being a great father. A lot of people that he sold stuff to probably didn't care if he was a good person or not. They just needed the product, but he was a salesman so he could provide for his family. And then he raised his family, and it just like, to him, the value was in, I'm going to do this job. And then that way I can do this with my kids. So the other thing that I would say, he's probably my best coach. My mom was my loudest coach. She was very good too. But my dad always said to me, when I got into coaching, the thing that always stuck with me, he goes, John, they got to love you to play for you. And, if you're in a position where you're managing people, they got to love you to play for you. And what that means is, like, if you're going to be hard on them, make sure you put an arm around them the next day. Okay. Or, it's like, man, just let them know that they're valued, and let them know that what they're doing matters, and let them know that you care about them. And I think that's something that you might be in a job that makes a ton of money, but if you feel like you're not valued, then eventually that money doesn't matter. You want to make sure that if you're in a position of leadership, let people know how much you care about them. They'll go harder for you, and I think that's a big thing.
That's John Ellenwood, head men's basketball coach at Ashland University. Thanks a lot, John.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Caller ID podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe with all of your friends on all of your social media platforms. Thanks again. Signing off, Brandon Davis Wells.